You know, I got a few calls about and emails about this, you know, this discourse by Baba, because it could be a little shocking, it's a little controversial, but it kind of needs to be put in context. But well, I'll give the background if and I think Jay Sema, you were just going to put on Baba's words.
Yeah. Yes.
But anyway, I'll give you the background. Bhau Kalchura used to share this. This is in 1955 in Satara. Aloba, one of the men mandali, he was in charge of these two servant boys. And their job was to, you know, Aloba would wake them up at 5, and at 6 o'clock they should have the chai ready for the Baba and the mandali. Anyway, on this particular morning, Baba comes over a little after 6 with a men mandali, and there's no chai. Why? Because the two boys went back to sleep. And so Aloba pitched a fit. And he was very rough with the boys, and enough so that Bhau and the other men mandali were kind of disturbed by Aloba's behavior. And so later on in the afternoon, Baba and Aloba were walking over to one of the other cottages, and Baba says to Bhau, "What are you thinking?" And of course, Bhau didn't want Baba asking that question, but Baba persisted, and he had to say, "Well, I was upset about Aloba's behavior with the boys, how he treated them roughly." And Baba said, "You know, you need to go to another ashram, you know, where you can lead a virtuous life." And Bhau was kind of taken aback. But so this is the discourse. Jasima will put it up. This is the discourse that Baba gave to Bhau Kalchura on this occasion. And the reason I say this too is that that Darwin, I read it and I was very really hit by it, especially. And a couple of weeks later, Darwin said he read it and he had a cosmic experience from this. So how about Goer? Do you mind reading that Baba's words there?
Sure. When Baba was staying in Satara in
wait, no, just the where it starts with me, no one can live.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. With me, no one can live what the world considers a moral life. Here we are concerned with spirituality, not morals. A spiritual life is not ruled nor bound by any principles. The sanskaras of each one are different, and so the behavior and temperament of everyone is different. In a virtuous life, evil is suppressed and good surfaces, but the evil is still there. The bad sanskars remain and have to be worked out. If not in this life, then in the next or the one after. In the spiritual life, both good and bad sanskars express themselves, and both get nullified. A spiritual life leads one toward naturalness, whereas a virtuous life, in the guise of humility, inflates the ego and perpetuates it. A spiritual life, though, is only led under the guidance and orders of the avatar or perfect master, who knows the pulse of everyone and treats everyone according to his particular malady. You don't like Aloba's behavior, but his behavior was quite natural and necessary for him. How can you understand that? People of the world act according to moral standards and socially acceptable behavior, but the avatar or perfect master deals with everyone according to his or her sanskars. Thus, spiritual life is totally different and cannot be judged on the basis of morality, ethics, or any principle.
So, as I said, you know, some of you kind of got in touch with me about this. And, you know, I mean, because the scene is kind of disturbing. And also, you know, what Baba says here, that we are not able to live a moral life. But I wanted to put this in a larger context because, you know, striving to be moral, living a life of goodness and virtue are all the early stages of our spiritual development. But Baba has said, been very clear that this is not the goal. You know, virtue is not the goal. Goodness is not the goal. And he says, in fact, he says that in striving to be virtuous, to be very good and moral, in doing that, we sometimes deny our shadow side. We often repress our shadow side because it doesn't accord with our ideas of virtue and good behavior. But on the other hand, a natural life where good and bad are both expressed, we are more aware of our whole self, and little is repressed. Because we all are a mixture of good and bad. Both have to eventually be dealt with. However, Baba is, this is what some of the people were kind of a little disturbed, because it seemed like Baba might be encouraging us to be bad, but he's not encouraging us to be bad. The bad in us does come out from time to time, and this is inevitable. But as you know, Baba wants us to give up our bad traits. So the cultivation of goodness and virtue and the experience of naturalness, the way I think of it, are like training wheels on a bicycle until Baba's love in us can function independently, till we can get that balance beyond our sanskars. So anyway, I would like to, I just wanted to say, I just want to put that in a larger context. But how did you folks respond to this? You know, what anybody want to give their kind of reaction to this quote from Baba?
Yes, Jeff, I would.
Yeah.
I would like to say that I had my Guru Paramahansa Yogananda, and when I came to Baba, actually, I was very drawn to Baba, but I was very shocked many times by the behavior of Baba lovers, and that kind of made me doubt, you know, many things. And I said, they're not even following the 10 commandments. I mean, what are these Baba lovers doing? They can't even follow something as simple as a 10 commandments. I mean, I was shocked, you know. I said, why do they call themselves Baba lovers? And it was very disconcerting for me for many years. It still is. And I don't know, I would love to read this discourse, because I always says they don't even have basic morals. You know, these people don't even have basic morality. And how are they calling themselves spiritual? So it was always very shocking to me. It still is many times. And yeah, I struggle with it all the time.
Excellent. I mean, yeah, I mean, we all have to, yeah, I mean, that's something we all have to kind of deal with. Our fellow Baba lovers, sometimes their behavior violates the values that we have, you know. But Baba's working with the good and bad in us, so we become aware of it. Not that he's giving us license to be bad, but, you know, trying to bring our awareness in there. So we're aware of our whole self. There aren't areas of us that we're in denial about. But anyway, let's, Yasmin, I'm glad you brought that up, and we'll keep on going here. Marcia, oh, Jassim is the one, yeah.
Marian, I guess she was the one.
Oh, good.
Right.
Oh, you called my name, Marian?
Yeah.
Oh, one point, because I totally agree with everything in this quote. I want to make some clarification about releasing the shadow side. I make a distinction between dumping mine on somebody else and expressing it. And that is a major distinction, because I'm committed to expressing my shadow side, bringing it out of my energy body, and not let it stew in there and act it out in some destructive way. But it needs to be expressed. So I have tools for that, such as training in bioenergetics, core energetics, psychodrama, like that, and always turning it to Baba. So it becomes a very creative process. And so I just want to make that distinction between expressing and dumping it on others.
Yeah, excellent, Marian. And you're not repressing it, but you're dealing with it, and the person that you might dump it upon, you're expressing it, but you're taking your ownership of it yourself.
Yes.
You might say.
Yes. And there is, I think that in the quote, there was a harshness there toward those boys, but it wasn't meanness.
Yeah.
It was sternness, but it wasn't mean. And there's a distinction in many of this presentation. So that's all. I'll hold other things back. Okay.
Excellent.
Next we have Marsha.
Okay, and we got Linda Blue in at some point. There's a little Jacima. Can you give her the hand? What kind of computer do you have, Linda? A Mac?
Yes, it's a Mac, but I still can't find my hand raised.
You go down to reactions. Do you see that at the bottom?
Yeah, I have reactions, and I get clapping, thumbs up, heart, crying, wow, and looks like an ice cream cone.
I think it says raise hand. It should say raise hand in there.
Linda, hit Options Y for an iMac. Option, key, and Y. And that should raise your hand, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, hey, you are. Okay, you're in line. Okay, who's next, Jacima?
Marsha.
This is just a little incident that happened yesterday where my bad kind of came out. I was walking my dog, and all of a sudden this dog ran up to me, and you're not supposed to let your dogs off leash. And then I walked some more, and the dog came around again, and I saw the owner. And usually I don't say anything. And then I said, you're supposed to have your dog on a leash. And she totally ignored me. And then I walked away and said, wow, I wasn't supposed to let that come out. But then I remembered the quote, and I said, well, all right, I'm just going to let it go because that's my bad thing for today. But, I should have held it in, but I didn't. But I was like upset. And, you don't want to be having somebody like come up to your dog, have somebody run up to, but it was a nice dog. So I said I was kind of stupid, but I called her stupid under my breath. That was the worst part.
Yeah. Okay, you're going to get a timeout for the rest of this. Okay, next.
Next we have Wendy.
This is a story where I was over in India. I'd been working out at Merizad all that week, and I had hired a driver for the rickshaw to come and pick me up at 5 o'clock. Any of you that have ever been there know that 5 o'clock they like you to depart. So anyway, twice my driver didn't show up, and the first time was very late. So I'm sitting there, and I mean, it wasn't a big problem, but it was like, okay. The next day just didn't show. So I can't remember, I think it might have been Marwan, but I'm not positive, who called the rickshaw driver. And this younger fella came. And so anyway, that was fine. I get in the rickshaw, I get to the main road, and the driver, which wasn't my regular driver, he was sort of the head honcho of all the rickshaw drivers. And he stopped our rickshaw, and he got really, really angry with the driver for picking me up. And it was like, whoa, wait a minute here. This is not okay. So I got out of the rickshaw and I said, wait a minute here. You know, the person that was supposed to come did not come. This gentleman came and got me. And now you're asking me to get out of that rickshaw and get into your rickshaw. And this gentleman has spent money to come and get me, and that's not okay. And he was right in my face. He was so angry. And it was like, I don't usually go into conflict. That's not something I do, but it was like, this is wrong. This is just wrong. Totally forgot where I was, and I'm a woman, and yada, yada, yada. And I said, listen, I am not going to go with you and this gentleman not get paid for that. That's not okay. And he said, well, that's just the way it is, and da, 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 da. So I said, okay, I'm not going to argue with you, but this is what I'm going to do. I paid the other rickshaw driver, I forget now what it was. And I said, I will deduct that from my ride, but I am not going to let that poor gentleman lose money because you didn't get there on time. So anyway, I get in the other rickshaw and so on and so forth. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I just left Baba's house and I, had a wonderful day, and I don't know if I did the right thing or not. I just don't know if I did the right thing or not. But I was really feisty, and that's not normally who I am. So I don't know what that was all about, but it was definitely one of those moments where I go, this could have gone really badly. I'm open for comment on that one.
You didn't quite go as far as Aloba, but good, but good example. Okay.
Next, we have Joshua.
My comment, Wendy, is good on you, for getting up in that guy's face and telling him and not paying him for that money. I think that's great. It's funny. I think probably one of my favorite Baba quotes is, do nothing even to please me against the dictates of your own conscience. And he was bandying that around, I think, during lots of early days. But yeah, I find it really important because to me, I feel it's really, as a core value, I really stand up to bullying. When I see bullying, I get, on a deep fundamental level, I say, I'm not going to stand for this. And I'm willing to bully a bully if that's the only way that they're going to listen, So, yeah, but no, it's interesting stuff. I'd suggest reading up on discourses, violence and non-violence. I think it's pretty good there. The summary that I remember is it's about what you're at. If you're going to, it's not good to be scared. So if you can't be non-violent without scared of them, then being courageous and standing up and fighting them is often the way to go. Yeah, it gives a good, I suggest that discourse. I think it's a good sort of like, it's scales, it's like if you're this incredible, then you just never fight anyone. But if you're not at that level yet, then sometimes you've got to go to war with other people.
But hey, so what was your thought, Joshua, about in reading this? Or do you get that thing, notice that I send out?
I do, but I'm terrible at checking my emails.
Oh, okay.
I've got, but listen, I probably would have gotten feisty with Aloba if I saw that happening, and it sounds like he was hitting kids. I'd probably give him a slap right back.
Sounds good. I mean, so yeah. We'll see who's next.
Next, we have Linda.
I love these stories, and I particularly love this discourse because it goes towards a very difficult truth, a truth of not everyday truth, the avatar's truth, the real truth, capital T. And I loved my own reactions reading the story and thinking, oh God, those Indians are so fiery, you know. And I was, you know, predicting what Baba was going to say when Bhau told him. And I was completely wrong. And in less than a second, I was so relieved too. So I was in that, you know, that mundane place that we live, that place of being nice and being gracious and being moral. Even. And immediately on Baba's straightening out Bhau. And in fact, I love, you should go to another ashram, you know. That's what, it took me right to another dimension, you know, to hear Baba's truth. And it was such a relief, a sweet relief, especially, you know, in the throes of the crappy truth that flies around all day long in the news and even between friends. So I loved it. I love the discourse, and I really like these stories too. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's a very deep truth because, I mean, we've got this this huge bundle of sanskaras, and we tend to go to extremes with these sanskaras and overlooks large parts of ourselves. So this is trying to keep both our good and bad in our awareness without Baba, you know, as I say, Baba's not encouraging us to be bad or selfish or cruel, but those things are going to come out. And we have to kind of be in touch with our whole self and not just the good parts of ourself, you know. Yeah.
Next we have Vijayji.
Jai Baba, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very important aspect, and what Linda said, and it's the truth. Actually, basically, what I perceive, God doesn't like hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is the most worst thing. He makes you naked. See, you have to be in front of God or perfect master. You have to go naked, what you are. You cannot pose as and when he looks at you, he looks right. See, when you go in front of Baba, he might look you to the evolution. So he knows that thousands and thousands years he can look because he's beyond time. So you are naked in front of him. So we cannot pose, Misa, I am Pius man and I am posing like this. So we have to be naked in front of God. And where the morality aspect, see, different society have different norms of morality. Something which is in your society morally is not good. In some other society, it may be morally acceptable, or so there are different norms. So morality is a kind of social thing. So we are not supposed to judge anyone. See, this is spiritual, the spirituality, the spiritual world is totally different. Here, everyone, as Baba said, that everyone's candidature is different. Everyone's sanskara is different. So when God looks to you, when master looks to you, perfect master, he knows your sanskaras and accordingly he gives you the order, and it may be contrast, very contrast. So it is really, but what matters is love, and what matters is pleasing Baba, and what matters is what obedience and what orders you are getting inwardly, what your conscience thinks. Baba says, follow your conscience because he says he's there. So what, you have to establish that link with your master or perfect master or God, irrespective of what society thinks of you. And that way, this morality aspect and all, these are all worldly aspects. And see, for Baba, nothing is good, bad. He says only everything is degree of good. Because in duality, everyone belongs to him. Saints are his assets, and those devils or whatever sinners are his liability, and he converts all. And basically we were sinners also. When we go back to our Babas looked at mandali and he said, you are all broken down furniture. We are all broken down furniture. And so we have to get our consciousness cleansed, very clean, until we get the realization or mukti or whatever. So we are in the all process, and main thing is love. See, in the beginning, I have to see all Baba centers. They got different group, this and that, and kind of. What I like to see in Baba lovers, their loving side. Means I don't, even Baba said, don't look in their personal matters, family matters, don't go. Only look what they are Baba, that's Baba side one should see. So that's the way I take, and for me, I don't differentiate with it. I only concerned with his Baba. He loves Baba, and how much Baba in it, I like to take advantage of that. So that much I like to say. Yeah. Jai Baba. Thank you. Thank you. I love you all. Yeah. Jai Baba.
Yeah. Jai Baba.
Next, we have Michael.
Hi. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
I like the quote because I found it liberating, because it was taking the controls off us and for us to be natural. And for instance, what Wendy said was really inspiring. I mean, she just stood up to this guy and, you know, he grew out of it, whether he liked it or not. And he wouldn't have done that if she hadn't spoken up. And for very aggressive people, if you don't say anything, they think you're weak. And to have somebody in his face, he'll think twice before he loses his temper. And that's really important. So this other thing about how we appear to others is just very tiresome and very, it's a burden. And besides which, it's mainly phony. And it gives rise to a religion and being pious. And that would really be the pits. So I like to compare myself to being one of Rumi's muleteers. And there's a Sufi story that goes that there was a Sufi scholar who was dying to be invited to Rumi's palace or mansion or his quarters, some faraway place, because the cream of society was there, intellectuals, philosophers, poets, and to be invited to one of these evenings was to be, well, you could die and your life would be complete. So he gets the invitation. The only trouble is he has to travel 10 days with a bunch of very crude muleteers, the guys that, you know, managed the mules and accompanied him. And he would light his candle and try to read his books while they talked about women and drank wine and told jokes, and they weren't very pious at all. And he thought, they're going to contaminate me. So he gets to Rumi's mansion and he has his dinner and his evening, and it's perfect just the way he imagined it. And that evening he was walking around the balcony because all these houses had an inner courtyard. And he sees Rumi with the muleteers. And Rumi is bowing down, not bowing on his knees, but bowing over and kissing their hands. And he said, kissing their hands, these crude specimens of humanity, how could he be doing that? Maybe they aren't so crude after all. Then after Rumi had left, he said, hey guys, remember me? And they turned and said, look, go back to your books. you know, you're not one of us, and we're going to go back to our ways. And they bid farewell. And I like to think of myself as one of Baba's muleteers. And the warriors, if a battle needs to be fought, then they'll fight it. And dying with my boots on is just not, I'm not accustomed to that. So I like it. I like what he said. So, and for people speaking up and asserting themselves, especially women, that's really important. So keep it up.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, some people were really felt relieved reading this. Some people were kind of like a little upset, and other people found it, you know, felt real relief. It gives a different picture of than just the moral kind of approach. You know, does someone have that
Aloba, he did some very scary things. He was kind of wild. Yeah. I mean, if we had been in the Prem ashram, good for us. I mean, that's where, you know, he was in the Prem ashram, but I tell you, I didn't want to listen to his dreams, you know.
Yeah, let's see. There was this one here. Let me read this one quote from Evelyn Underhill. It seems so much easier these days to live morally than to live beautifully. Lots of us manage to exist for years without ever sinning against society, but we sin against loveliness every hour of the day. That's just kind of an interesting way of viewing life. Go ahead. Who's next?
Next, Yasmin.
Okay, Baba. You know this thing about not being a hypocrite, and Baba hates hypocrisy, and Baba says be natural, and Baba says this, and Baba says that, and we will do what we like. And Baba is very compassionate. He forgive us anything, and we'll do anything we want, and no one is to check us, and no one is to. I mean, I find this very, very upsetting, actually. Because, okay, if you have a shadow side, go to a therapist and work out your shadow side with your therapist. Why do you have to treat the whole world as a therapy session and just shoot your mouth out or do what you want in the world? I mean, even in a therapy situation, you have a certain 1 hour and 2 hours in which everything is contained. You can't do what you do in a therapy session in the world. It's just not on. I mean, there's a limit. I can't deal with all this, you know, really I can't.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, are we
It's
to
rough.
accept road rage? What about road rage?
No, the world is certainly a violation of a lot of our cherished values, for sure. They get trampled upon. Who's
Tony?
Now, Tony was at the UN, so I mean, he's really been a battle scarred.
Huh. People's ideas and preconceptions and notions are really interesting. I don't understand what you said at all in terms of my experience, but anyway, I like the story. I think it's consonant with you know, Baba's treatment of the mandali, the Nasik ashram, what I like to call the marriage ashram. Baba brings up, in my experience, we, or at least I, have made him work so hard to get me to see my own dark side, the qualities that I have that I don't want to see because I'm a nice guy and I don't like fighting and I like to do wonderful things and make beautiful, and it's like, where am I going to become whole or come anywhere close to my own being in Baba, if all of that darkness is not somehow brought to the surface and integrated. It's not like you become an evil person, but if you acknowledge that you've got whatever the trait is, desire that you have, or it rather than making us fail in Baba's eyes, I think it's a success for him. We have stopped hiding something of ourselves, and we have. I'm going to say we because I think it's universal. Maybe not everyone, but most of us. We have enormous dark sides, and we like to pretend we don't. And Baba is, in my experience, very, very persistent in getting me to see them. And the good part, and Carl Jung talks about a lot of this shadow work, and it's really wonderful stuff. But the really good thing about it is when you stop pretending or hiding or trying to think that you're only the good you, all the power you have to accomplish things in your life, for Baba, everything comes from all those energies of the dark side that you've repressed. And when you can incorporate that into your being, you're becoming more, in a quote, self-realized. I mean, of course Baba would not want Aloba to suddenly behave himself in that situation. Not saying that it's a good thing, but Aloba got to see a side of himself there. And I get to see sides of myself a lot, and it's humiliating. That was the subject a week or so ago. But humiliating in the sense of humbling, because the ego there's no way the ego can live with this. It's just, all right, I surrender it. This is who I am, all of that. So, and I didn't think I was going to have anything to say on this.
No, you spoke well. That was very, very well spoken.
Even though I worked at the UN too.
Yeah, with all these nations and everything.
I wanted to say something. What about that adage that a man could say something in its strength, and if a woman says it, she's a bitch? What about that?
We all know that.
Do we?
We do. I mean, the people here know that.
We know it's said.
Yeah.
But is it valid? Is it valid?
We I would say every one of us knows it's not valid.
I don't know. Let's say show of hands.
Okay, raise your hand. Everybody that thinks that's not valid, raise your hand. See?
There's which I don't mean to jump in and unmute myself, but it reminds me of a saying that Zeke has sometimes shared with me. If a man speaks in the forest and there is no woman to hear him, is he still wrong? Bye.
Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Jeff, actually, some have joined new. Like, should we read it again? Like Ralph is saying he doesn't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, bring it up and go, or if you feel like reading it again. These are Baba's words. I'm wondering if we should we give the background there? Yeah, pull it down a little bit, Jay Seema, and we'll read the background there. When Baba was staying in Satara, yeah.
Okay. So when Baba was staying in Satara in January 1955, an incident occurred that gave rise to the following discourse from Baba. Giving the background, Aloba was in charge of 2 servant boys whose job, among other duties, was to prepare the morning chai for Baba and the men mandali. The routine was that Aloba would wake the boys up at 5 a.m. and the tea should be ready by 6 o'clock. On this particular morning, when Baba and the mandali came for chai a little after 6, it was not ready. The boys had fallen back to sleep. Aloba pitched a fit and was very rough with the boys. His behavior was so harsh that the other mandali found it disturbing. Later in the day, when Aloba and Bhau were walking with Baba to one of the cottages, Baba said to Bhau, "What are you thinking?" Bhau replied that he was thinking of Aloba's harsh treatment of the servant boys. Baba said pointedly that he should go to some other ashram where he could live a virtuous life, and then gave this discourse. With me, no one can live what the world considers a moral life. Here we are concerned with spirituality, not morals. A spiritual life is not ruled nor bound by any principles. The sanskars of each one are different, and so the behavior and temperament of everyone is different. In a virtuous life, evil is suppressed and good surfaces, but the evil is still there. The bad sanskars remain and have to be worked out, if not in this life, then in the next or in the one after. In the spiritual life, both good and bad sanskars express themselves, and both get nullified. A spiritual life leads one towards naturalness, whereas a virtuous life, in the guise of humility, inflates the ego and perpetuates it. A spiritual life, though, is only led under the guidance and orders of the avatar or perfect master, who knows the pulse of everyone and treats everyone according to his particular malady. You don't like Aloba's behavior, but his behavior was quite natural and necessary for him. How can you understand that? People of the world act according to moral standards and socially acceptable behavior, but the avatar or perfect master deals with everyone according to his or her sanskars. Thus, spiritual life is totally different and cannot be judged on the basis of morality, ethics, or any principle.
Yeah. So the one of the important things there too is that life has to be led under the guidance and orders of a perfect master or the avatar. In other words, this isn't for someone out in the world to go out and be bad and everything and and hurt people. This is you have somebody who knows you very well and can work with these things in you. Okay.
Yeah, but nowadays there's no moral direction in the world. So what now?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we have to kind of do
Really?
it from our
worldwide confusion and chaos.
Yeah.
Baba says no one is to blame, you know.
Yeah, no, it is.
You've
shocking.
got to look within.
Okay.
Yeah, next we have Rainy. Rainy, Jai Baba.
Whoop, we can't hear you yet.
I had this idea suddenly when Tony spoke and now he's disappeared. There he is. Okay, Tony.
He's down on the bottom floor.
I see him down there on the third. I'm up on the fourth floor here.
Yeah, penthouse.
Literally as well. So this thing of the shadow doesn't just go on for us everyday folk, it also goes on for the mandali folk.
Yeah.
So there's a good fun thing about my shadow from our buddy Francis Brabazon. Can you hear me, Jeff?
Yes, yeah, you're nice and clear.
Okay. It comes from The Beloved is All in All, TBIAIA. The Beloved is All in All. It's on page 12, Tony, when you need to get back to it and put it to melody. Because I see my shadow, I know love's sun has risen. But you see, my fascination with my shadow has become my prison. My shadow, my shadow. My shadow goes out from me and turns back and beckons and says, come, let us dance together along new horizons. My shadow, my shadow, my shadow, oh, oh. I answer, invite me no more, you sweet little witch. Many times I've danced out with you into a ditch. My shadow, my shadow, my shadow, oh, oh. Oh, we said our love will awaken the earth to a new dawn. But my spirit blew only cracked notes on its wilted horn. My shadow, my shadow. I'll sit out my prison's sitting in my heart's corridor. And at midday, your beauty will be buried beneath this floor. My shadow, my shadow. For although this prison has thick walls, it has no roof. And of love's sun's glory, midday will bring burning proof. My shadow, my shadow. Not only you, darling shadow, will have vanished, but the horn of the sun will bring down these walls, and I and my true beloved will be one. My shadow, my shadow, my shadow, no more.
Great, Rainey, beautiful, perfect.
And you see how he did it. He did it so
Yeah.
carefully. He built just the walls and the roof, and the sun came in and it was noon and there was no shadow. And what did he do? He slipped through before the shadow appeared again, and he and his true beloved became one.
Lovely, beautiful. Okay, wow, we got a few hands there.
Yeah, next we have Prakash.
Jai Baba. Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of thoughts, and I thought I'll just quickly read out what Baba has said in this particular quote, which I really love. I mean, I think I totally agree with what, I don't have any conflicts with that, though I may not be totally proving that to myself properly, but here it is. A spiritual life, Baba says, leads one toward naturalness, whereas a virtuous life in the guise of humility inflates the ego and perpetuates it. Baba further goes, a spiritual life can only be led under the guidance and orders of Avatar. So with that said, I was thinking, as long as we realize with full conviction that Baba is the doer of everything through us, and we lead a life that is most natural in the sense, if I get angry, well, let me be angry at the time. If I feel happy, let me be happy. Because if I'm angry, I would realize a bit later that probably that's not the way to go, because my samskaras have prompted me to get angry because I'm being natural at the time. So the point is, spiritual life means elimination of sanskaras. That's Baba's work. And that, because I know that he is the doer, my naturalness will help get rid of these samskaras, both good and bad. And I have seen over the years in my life, there are people I really adore. I'm not a great judge of people, and I know they're really, really great Baba lovers. But I found their behavior very, very erratic. At times, they're just literally very, very loving. And next moment, they find something going wrong and they don't like it. And they're the one to fume with no reservation. So, so I guess Baba is literally dealing with them, even though he's physically not there. Perhaps they realize that Baba is the doer. So to me, and they're not hypocritical. I mean, I like when Vijayji mentioned about hypocrisy. It's just beautiful. But if you're not hypocritical, you can be most natural. And you realize that Baba is a doer, then it's simply eliminating your sanskaras. And which to me is spiritual life. Those are my thoughts, Jai Baba.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that, just talking about, Erich, one of his most often quoted lines over the years was, quoting Baba, To be natural is most godly. You know, not to be spiritual is most godly, or to be moral is most godly. To be natural is most godly. Very unusual. But I think he's talking about heart natural. You know, if you blow up at somebody, you get angry, a natural thing is to apologize. You know, I mean, his naturalness isn't just being, you know, venting yourself, but also there's the heart loving side of us that, you know, that mops up the the mess, you might say. That's the natural thing. But anyway, but to be natural is most godly. And Erich was really very natural. And yeah, but not natural in a way that was hurtful. Yeah.
We have Peter.
Alrighty, hi folks. I'm at work, so I may have to go on a dime, but I wanted to contribute something. There's a story. I've been listening as I can. I wish I could listen to more, because to me, it's a subject that I'm very confused about and I want to get more perspective. And the following is a story that I read from Erich's book, and it's a little intense. It also helped me to reduce my level of judgment to the point where there's certain judgment I'm unable to judge in a way, or it helped reduce my judgment. And I have some other stuff I want to share. I'm just not going to do that. It's in Erich's book. That's how it was. Bear with me. It's Sanskaras. Most of the time when we were with Mayor Baba, we did not talk about God or spirituality. We talked about whatever work we were engaged in at the time, or we talked about commonplace things. It was not often that Baba was in the mood to give a discourse, but in the early years, Baba would repeatedly bring up the subject of sanskaras. He would explain how it was our sanskaras which kept us from realizing our oneness with God. Because of the emphasis Baba put on it, many in the mandali became convinced that their goal should be to get rid of their old sanskaras and avoid taking on new ones. And here it says to avoid talking on new ones, but I think it's taken on new ones. And Baba did not discourage them in this. But as Baba explained more and more about the nature of sanskaras, the mandali were forced to adopt more and more desperate measures to avoid taking on more sanskaras. It reached the point where people were reluctant to sit near each other or to have someone look at them while they were eating. It became almost impossible for anyone to do anything. And it was then that Baba told the following story. There was a notorious bandit. I'm sure people have heard of this. Anyone that's listened to Erich's talks had probably run into this one. He tells it in various ways. There was a notorious bandit, a highwayman who not only robbed, but also murdered people. This was how he supported himself and his family. In the course of earning his livelihood, he had killed 99 people. It was at this point that he experienced a sudden and intense change of heart. He realized for the first time what terrible... Yes?
Oh. Go ahead, yeah. Something happened, but...
I know. I think somebody else got hurt on the line. All right, we'll pray. He realized for the first time that terrible karma he was creating for himself through his occupation. Deeply tormented with the thoughts of his evil deeds and in great despair, he left his family and wandered the country seeking peace of mind. He grew more and more desperate, constantly beseeching God to forgive him his sins. One day it so happened that he had the great good fortune to attract the attention of a perfect master. The master asked him what was troubling him, and he told the master his whole story, poured out his heart to him, and he pleaded with him to help. The master agreed to do so and led the repentant man into the surrounding jungle. He took him to a certain spot and instructed him to sit there and repeat God's name. Never leave this spot except to beg for food or to attend calls of nature, and even then return to this exact spot exactly and stay here. The man was overjoyed that there was the possibility of escape from his karma, and immediately began following the master's instructions. Well, years went by. I want to say that 3 times. Well, years went by. Well, years went by, and because the man was sincere in his quest for forgiveness, he continued to sit where his master had instructed him and repeated God's name for years. In fact, he became lost in the repetition of God's name and gradually left the spot less and less. Oh, God. Although he seldom came into town now to beg for his food, the people there began to respect him and eventually to revere him for his dedication in repeating the Lord's name. It so happened that the jungle where the man sat lay in between one town and another. The king decided that a path should be cut through the jungle so that his messengers could more speedily travel from one town to the other. So accordingly, townspeople were hired to cut a track through the jungle. When they reached the spot where the man sat, they stopped and waited until he'd gone off to beg for food, and then they worked hurriedly so that the section would be done by the time he returned. Absorbed in his repetition of God's name, when the man returned, he simply resumed his spot, which was now in the middle of the king's highway. Years went by, and the man continued to sit there. Travelers respected the man and would always edge to one side of the path so as not to disturb him when they passed. And always the man held to the repetition of his beloved's name. Now it so happened that one day the king sent a courier on this road to deliver a message to a neighboring king. The messenger was full of arrogance and self-importance, and he reacted to the spectacle of a man seated in the middle of a track, forcing him to slow down and go around. He reined in his steed and called out to the man, "Hey, you, are you blind? Move aside at once." The man was so absorbed in his repetition that he didn't even hear the messenger, who continued to yell at him and to abuse him. The messenger got angry at the man's lack of response, and he reached down and slashed the man across the cheek with his riding whip. In a flash, the highwayman's old skills reserted themselves, and instinctively he reached out, yanked the messenger from his horse, and throttled him, thus making him his 100th victim. But the messenger happened to be carrying an order from the king for the execution of 100 innocent people. Thus, the 100 people the highwaymen had killed were exactly balanced by the 100 people he had inadvertently saved, and because his sanskaras of killing and saving were thus so balanced, so instantly became God realized. This was the story Baba told, but of course his point was not that it is okay to kill, but rather that balancing one's sanskaras is such an exceedingly subtle operation that there's no way one can hope to do it on one's own. The intricacies of the path are finer than the finest hair. So be natural, Baba urged. Simply do as I tell you to, obey me, and don't worry about sanskaras.
Fantastic, Peter. Thank you. I
that,
love that story.
Yeah, that's Baba's own story. So that
in teaching.
Yeah, incredible. That is, I remember hearing that. Boy, we were kind of surprised that that came from Baba himself. Okay, Jaisima.
Michael.
Oh, hi. It's funny, I didn't know my throat needed clearing until I opened my mouth to say something. I was struck by something Yasmin said and Rosalie, in that equality, what I like, what Wendy did, as opposed to being angry, is that she did not get angry. She got loud enough for the guy to hear her, and she asserted herself, and she came up with a solution. Now, the whole art of self-assertion that I know of in dealing with anger, one is to be able to drop your anger immediately. It took me a really bad marriage and years of arguing with people to be able to do that, as well as I do it now. I'm fearful about saying I've conquered it, because Baba will throw something at me and and humiliate me. So I'm working on it as an ideal. And that when you dealing with adversary, somebody who's an adversary, there's a goal, a result that you want to achieve. And once that's achieved, you stop. That Muhammad stopped Ali from killing an enemy with whom he'd been fighting. And he was going to deliver the killing blow, and he stopped him. And because of that, and out of that, he became Ali's best friend. They were that you can't fight or pick a fight out of retaliation, or just because you're angry, you want to find somebody to dump your anger on, because that, to me, is where that requires, that demands an apology. And why humiliate yourself with countless apologies just because you can't control your mouth or your anger? And so this life to me has become a skill set. And loving God is a skill set. It's the one thing to have a feeling of love, but it's another thing to turn it into poetry. Or in my case, poetry, visual arts, furniture. Every one of those requires skill, no matter, regardless of my feelings. If I don't have the skill to translate it, it looks like garbage. And if I don't have the feeling, or if I'm not inspired, but I have the skill set, it looks dry and lifeless. So this balance is really important. I just wanted to bring that up, that being free and natural has its own requirements. And to me, it's the bottom line is the prayer of repentance. And anything that breaks that rule, those rules, that demands from me an apology to whomever, if it's a group or an individual. So that's how I go about keeping my conscience clean and also being as natural as I can be.
Good.
Hey, Baba.
Yeah. Amen. Oh.
I wanted to share something. When Baba was, I think about 10 years old, he was at, it was a religious school. I think there were Catholic priests or brothers. And Baba he was amazing. He could, if he heard something once, he could remember it. And the priest thought he cheated, or the brother, whatever, this religious teacher, he thought he had to have cheated, because how can he just remember it, hearing it once? And so he caned him, that wicked little thin stick, I guess on the hands. I think they hit the hands. And as he's caning Baba, he realizes it was wrong, that he's innocent of this cheating. And he says, "Oh, please forgive me, Mirwan." And Baba says, and I says, What is there to forgive? It is all right. It was a mistake. It is forgotten and forgiven. And he's like 10 years old. I mean, this is God, man. This is God, man. I mean, that rings in me now. It just helps me.
Yeah.
What is there to forgive? But then you don't want to be a doormat, you know, unless you are a doormat. You know.
Okay.
Next we have Mahatchan.
Jai Meher Baba.
Yeah.
Can you hear me out?
Yeah, we hear you, but we don't see you, but we hear you. We see your fan.
Yeah,
JJ
it sounds very easy. We think that spirituality and morality, two aspects of the coin, according to me. Spirituality and morality, we should balance together. Otherwise, it's a very difficult task, because as a volunteer in 1970, first time when I came and approached Pendu Kaka, who was the chief volunteer at that time, first thing he said, whatever the duties I'm allotting to you, you should do it. And you should stick on to your duties. You should not deviate from your duties. Even something is going to happen next to you, and you should not deviate. So I always used to feel that when you are, it all looks like sometime I was doing a duty at the tent, and those in 78, that was not much people. Somebody got a heart attack. So I rushed up, and somebody has given a complaint that no duty officer was there at the tent. The first thing I was called explanation, when I told you to stick on to that thing, even something has happened, you are not supposed to leave your duty. First thing he has violated that. He's called an explanation to me, Pendu Kaka. Then I said, Pendu Kaka, somebody is literally in my tent, is fall down with a heart attack. Then said, you should have sent a message to someone, but you are not supposed to do your duty. The first lesson I learned is, whatever the duties you have allotted, you should do it. Even though there is a morally I'm supposed to help him also. But in spite of that, first lesson I learned is, duty is the first concept. Baba always used to create such situation among the mandali also. And the second thing is, I always used to try to do samadhi duties during Amar Tithi. Because I was given the duty at once at samadhi. One of the Baba lovers from Amirpur, who just came to Baba samadhi and bow down. And our instructions is, you should not allow for a more time. You should ask him to Jai Baba, Jai Baba, Jai Baba, in this thing. Then he is Mr. Lala from Amirpur. He was a very, very nice person. But the moment when I asked him to get up, he didn't get up. Jai Meher Baba, please, please, Jai Meher Baba, please. But in spite of that, he did. Then I just tapped on him. Suddenly, his anger was so much, he has shouted on me. Don't you know that? You think you alone, you are suffering, Baba? Something is shouted on me. Then I got annoyed. Then suddenly, my duty in charge, Dolly auntie, came and said, what happened? I said, this. Okay. Then he said, why did you tap on his back? I asked, we didn't ask you to tap on his body. You should ask him to go, please, 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 you should say. When he doesn't, you should allow him in 1 minute more. Then I got wondered. They themselves says to clear the line, clear the persons, because many persons favor this thing. And such a situation, I think we should have a knack. And even though morally I'm duty conscious, I have to do the duty. But same time, he says he has come only once in a year to spend time with his beloved. And I cannot interfere with him, between him and his master. He might be right, but still, I have to do my duty. And I told, it's a very difficult task. Morality, and one of my judges of the High Court judge, Mr. Prakash Roy, is always used to say, your Baba is very compassionate. Your Baba is very compassionate. But your Baba lovers are very selfish and very this thing, because whatever they want for their benefit, they interpret their own way. And this, I always, no. Baba lovers are one. I used to always say that it's very difficult because Baba is very compassionate, but still, in spite of that, they interpret to support their actions. You're not supposed, if because Baba says, I can tolerate anything but hypocrisy. But most of the Baba lovers situations, they do hypocrisy. I said, might be every individual. I conclude with this, one of the quotation mentioned by message discourse given by Baba on 15th December 1968. That is, Baba says, on Sunday, 15th December 1968, Dr. Grant came to Meherazad at 7:30 a.m. from Pune with his nurse, and gave Baba a blood transfusion and administered cardiogram. Meherji came with Dr. Wadia and Dr. Ichapuria, and Adi and Don were also present. Baba was in a very good mood, and during the session gave a short discourses to the doctors. Hypocrisy is at the zenith and in the world today. I have come to destroy it. The material progress of the world will maintain, but alongside it, alongside, man should develop morally and spiritually. So that indicates is we should both morally and spiritually we should develop in Baba's law. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Yeah. Good. No, that I'm glad you brought those two together. And, I mean, Baba said that like to be moral is not the goal, but it's part of our something that we have to acquire, but it's not the goal. But we can't, you know, Bob's not going to go for immorality with us. Well, we got a few more here.
Tony?
Hi. Talking about Baba wanting us to be natural, and that quote from Erage. My first trip to India, visiting the Pune Center, Baba, I bought them, but Baba gave me an almost complete set of the Awakener magazine, which was just a wonderful thing to bring back home. And in one of those, and I read through them, and in one there was a story by Hoshang Barucha, who wrote The Last Sahavas, Dr. Barucha. And he had been visiting, he was called by Baba with a friend of his name was Rivas or something like that, to visit for a week in Meherazad. And it was during a prolonged period when Dr. Kenmore, Harry Kenmore, was there. And so he tells the story that they're in Mandali Hall, and Baba, as always when Harry was there, asked him to say the Parvardigar prayer. And now if you've ever heard Harry Kenmore say the Parvardigar prayer, it starts kind of like, "Oh, Parvardigar, the preserver and protector of all, you are," and it just continues with that intensity, and it's almost biblical. After the morning session was over, Barucha came over to Harry and said, "You know, I wasn't sure whether you were praying to God or fighting with him." And so the next morning, they began the session, and again Baba asked Harry to say the prayer, and Baba began, "O Parvardigar, the preserver and protector of all, you are," and he's so softly and so gently, and Baba suddenly looking very, very concerned and getting kind of a sour look on his face, and finally, "Harry, why have you changed your usual method of saying the prayer?" And Barucha quotes Harry as saying, "Well, Baba, I did not want to disturb the auditory apparatus of our visitors." and Barucha says that Baba just threw them a glance, and he said he would have preferred if the earth had opened up beneath his feet at that moment from the quality of that glance. And Baba said, "Say it your normal way, your normal fashion." And so Harry again said the prayer, and it was stirring. It was a stirring prayer. And afterwards, Baba said, prayer should be natural. For Harry, this is the natural way to say the prayer. To say it in any other way would not be natural. And he also, I don't know if it was at the same time, but he said that when Harry says the prayer, it goes right up to the 7th plane.
Yeah. Up 7 flights.
Yep. And this is totally unrelated to the subject, but to the story. When I first heard Harry Kenmore, it was at a Monday night meeting. I didn't know who he was or anything, and it was a crowded room, and there was mirrors on the wall, and there was the compassion picture of Baba was taped onto the mirrors. And Harry comes in, and he begins with the Parvardagar prayer. And I literally had to bite the inside of my cheeks on both sides to keep from laughing. And I was saying, these people take this very seriously. I can't stop laughing. About halfway through, the prayer had just lifted me right up, and I was looking at Baba's picture desperately not to laugh, and then suddenly Baba's picture became so alive with the power of that prayer. But anyway, for Harry, the subject for here was being natural.
It was like a hurricane. I heard it many times, like a hurricane coming in and just decimating everything, and the shutters on the houses rattled, and they're gone, and everything. And then everything is laid bare.
That was one
really cleared the place of sanskaras for the time being. Yeah.
That was one of Baba's nicknames for him. He sometimes called him Hurricane Harry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Next, we have Brani.
Well, we can't hear you yet, Brani.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, good.
Jai Baba, everybody. I feel moved to read a little excerpt from the Indian edition of Lord Mayhair. It was from 1917 when Baba was spending time with Upasni Maharaj, and also when he was working in his father's toddy shop. It was around that period. And he went out one night. It was 10 o'clock at night and bitter cold, but Merwan, wearing only a light cotton pant and cotton pants, started walking on the road. The night, and he was on his way to Sikori. The night was black, and though Kopageon was only 2 miles from the train station, it took him more than 2 hours to reach the village. At one juncture on the road, a policeman stopped Merwan and warned him not to wander on that dark road, for the area ahead abounded with thieves. The policeman was holding Merwan's coat sleeve, trying to persuade him to stay the night in Kopageon, when Merwan roughly pushed his hand away and shook his arm loose. And suddenly his eyes turned into burning coals. Merwan looked at the policeman in such an intense, ferocious manner that the man stumbled back, thinking he might attack him. Merwan, however, immediately fell at the policeman's feet and begged his pardon. The man did not know what to think as Merwan rose and turned away, walking off into the desolate blackness. The policeman stared at the strange young man as he disappeared into the night, puzzled by this chance encounter. Even in the moonless night, the radiant glow on Merwan's face could not be hidden. Even in his dazed condition, the glow of God's love shone through his features. I love this story because just a beautiful example of Liz Baba, he is who he is, and ferociously looking like he's going to attack the man, and then humbling himself immediately at the man's feet. And for me, it's just a great reminder when I get, immediately enraged about something, and in the next breath, immediately I want to fall at the feet of whoever it is or whatever it is, and to feel okay about both of those things, or about the anger. It helps me to accept my own humanity. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. No, A lot of people have been, like I say, relieved by this, what Bob has said in these 3 paragraphs. You know, here's an interesting thing I've found in myself is a sign that I'm too identified with being right or, you know, good and everything is when I get critical or judgmental of someone who's doing just the opposite. Then you know you've gone too far the other way if you're critical of somebody who's expressing the opposite. But now, like, I'll give you an example. Like, say, suppose there's some drunk, you know, that's staggering down the street and carrying on. Now, I myself never had a problem with alcohol. And so I might look at that and say, you know, what is he doing? He's wasting his life and he's just drunk out in public and everything. And I might react like that. But someone who's in AA, who's been in AA for a long time and has overcome, you know, their addiction, has an entirely different way of looking at that drunk that's staggering along the street, because he has been in touch with his negative side, with his shadow. And so he has compassion for that person. Whereas if I'm, you know, a teetotaler, I never drink and everything, why does a guy have to behave like that? I haven't been in touch with that side of myself to have compassion for that person. So there's something to be said for that. I mean, I always know if I'm critical of something, you know, I might get too moral. You know, why is that person dishonest? I'm not dishonest. Why are they? You know, so you can kind of check. I've been able to check myself to find out when I've gone too far. I've identified too far, too fully with with the good quality or the moral stance. If I'm judgmental of people who don't live according to that standard that I have set for myself. Anyway, well, let's see. I think we've kind of, I want to tell you before we go on Tuesday, I've asked Nick Principe again to share some of his mandali stories. So that's going to be Tuesday night, and he's soon going to be going to Assisi. So I'm catching him before he goes. But he's got a lot of great stories that he shared with the mandali over the years. And a very good, wonderful storyteller as well. So I'm trying to think. Someone asked about naturalness. Just before we go, it's getting kind of late. How would you how does one become more natural? I mean, Bob was asking us to be natural.
We have Wendy.
I don't know if this is what you're asking, but if somebody, you know, is dishonest or is mean to me or whatever, or when I specifically used it was with my children, when their behavior was not okay. And I would say to them, I need 15 minutes because nothing good is going to come out of my mouth. I need time to recalibrate. I felt like I was being natural. I was letting them know I'm not pleased with this behavior. But in all honesty, I didn't know what to do with it. I needed time to think. And I had some people in my life growing up that they had very sharp tongues. And, you know, once you say it, you can't take it back. you can say you're sorry, but you know, it's sometimes people won't forgive you. And I didn't want that. You know, I didn't want my kids to be my friends, but I did want them to respect me. So anyway, I don't know if that was being natural. I'm open to comment on that.
No, that that sounds very natural to me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it works.
Yeah. No, excellent. Okay, let's see.
We have Michael.
Hi. I've been studying these things about what comes out of your mouth and expression, and I put it into my poetry. But it is possible if you come up with a heartfelt apology that you can rebuild trust. And those apologies, I think, will be the cornerstone of the new humanity, because the person that receives a heartfelt apology cannot help but respond with love. Whether they admit to it or not, whether they say they forgive you or not, it doesn't matter. This communication has gone out there. So as far as becoming natural, I think you could say you have to trust yourself, and you have to trust in God, that if everything is His will, and you know that you mean no harm in what you say, or that we can fix it. We're not condemned to live in hell because we screwed up, and that there's no one who's beyond redemption. I mean, Baba has made it clear that sinner and saint, He's come for all of them. And that our destiny, our birthright, is to become God realized. Well, in that case, what's there to be fearful about or careful about? I mean, the worst that will happen is that you screw up. And if you screw up a lot and you come up with heartfelt apologies, and you have to clean up the damage and you have to make an amendment, it gets to be so expensive that your mind becomes your servant and says, shut up. It's going to cost you. And that means just cool it. And it's just such a powerful tool. So trusting yourself, trusting in God, and sort of like you put your arms out and say, I would rather make a mistake, fail. That's what it is. It's like every time I tackle a woodworking project or a work of art, there's always the prospect of failure. The words won't turn out right. I'll ruin a $10 piece of paper and paints or $300 worth of wood. I'm up against it now with a table that I want to deliver tomorrow, and it looks like, oh God, it looks terrible. And you just confront the fact that failure does not kill. You can always do it again. And the humiliation, what? You'll survive that as well. I mean, we're here 8,400,000 lifetimes as humans. God, if you can't fail, if failure killed, we'd be dying over and over and over and over again with no avail. So,
yeah,
it has to do with being willing to the God man to say to you, "That's wrong." Rub your nose in the dirt. Bhau did that to me a couple of times, and in fact, we had a meeting at Marana, and Mark Troy goes in front of me, and he gets all sorts of helpful advice from Bhau, and Bhau starts carrying on in a really strange way. It's like he's trying to tear my sexual sanskaras from me, and there's these people standing around or sitting around witnessing this, and I'm thinking, you're talking about humiliation. This is really going for it. And I kept on taking my wedding ring off and on because Donna and I had just gotten together pretty much in the previous months. And I got the impression that he wanted me to break up with her. So I agreed and I left. And I drove about a mile down the road. And I said, you know, that's wrong. I gave this woman my heart. I promised her. So I drove back and said to Bhau, I'm not leaving Donna. It would be unkind. I would be breaking my promise to her. And he dismissed me as if with disdain. Do not consult with me anymore. And yet, the funny thing is that it did not affect our relationship. I always loved him. So we disagreed. But I knew that in terms of the new life, and that story of Erich and the dove, that it was my job to correct him or not agree with him. And the worst that will happen is that I'd be made wrong or humiliated again, but I would survive. 8,400,000 lifetimes, I'm still here. So
minus one.
That's just to begin the
Yeah.
spiritual path, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you still got
Yeah.
thousands more to go. I mean, so a few lifetimes more or less, you know.
Yeah. Let's see what Marion has. We're coming down to the end here.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what your question was. I had a response.
How do we become natural?
Oh, okay. Very good.
Yeah.
I first want to just quickly, Wendy, thank you very much. You gave a perfect example of respond rather than react. The reaction was inside you and you chose to respond and like take that breath and move away. It's a perfect example of practice, you know,
Yeah.
and there's an expression, know thyself. And that's what I find, because Baba has it right in the discourses. Our divine nature is knowledge, power, and bliss. On the psychological level, we draw from that because that's our perfect nature inside. And so the human, as a human, I learned that then you draw on that, you distort it and create a defense. That's psychology 101. And the defense of those divine natures is reason, will, and emotion. And we all have got one or the other to the fore. Mine is emotion. Somebody else might be will, somebody else reason, because in their divine nature, we have one or two to the fore, even though we have all of them. And so I know for me, being natural, I had to learn that my nice girl was a mask, and underneath I had a killer. And so only when I got it, and it's professionally, I do this and I do it with others, is how to bring that other side out. And we don't do it without help, because there's a fear of falling into an abyss. If we go to the side of the coin of duality that we're most afraid of, mine was aggression. So I had to have a lot of help to do that and become more natural, and a lot of psychodrama, a lot of acting out, a lot of killing and shooting people, but always telling God I was doing it and having a helper to do it. And then it all toned down and became more balanced, my thinking and feeling, my aggression and submission. They started becoming unified, and they become the entrance to the unitive state, when both sides of the coin can be held. So that's how I became more natural, and I still work on it. On it. Somebody triggers me, I know I need to take that breath, and I may need to just be nice, but then go off and do the work. So it's learning those tools, and I know that I've become more balanced as I let myself experience both sides of the coin and bring them together. Yeah. There's no way out but to do that. Yeah. No way out. Yeah.
You know, one thing I just want to say is one way of getting to naturalness is to reduce the unnaturalness. It's kind of backing into naturalness. In other words, when you're being overly good, kind of cut back on being overly good. When you're being, too nice, you kind of cut back on those things, and you become a little bit more natural by not overdoing, being too moral, being too good, being too aggressive, being too whatever, self-expressive.
Yes. And it takes practice, and it takes doing it with some help, because I distinguish fear from terror. There's fear about doing anything new. Terror is a little different. It's what the little child feels when a need is not met. And the child, that's all of us, feels like we'll be annihilated, not exist. It's the worst fear that anybody can have, is that you don't exist. It's so anti-spiritual, but that's what little children who have no ego yet experience, terror. So when I'm entering something new in my life, something new and expansive and stepping into a new void in my life, I experience terror. That's where I know, I pray to Baba, what's the support I need to meet that terror so that I can find out what my real needs are and how to get those needs met. And so it means really having some support at certain stages.
Yeah, good, excellent. Well, this is the last one, and then we'll have, if someone has I was trying to think of a quote. I had a quote. Anyway, let's go with, who's next, Jaysima?
Brani.
Okay, Brani.
I'll just be quick. I seem to remember you saying in one of the Effort and Graces, Jeff, about Eric saying that to be natural is to be most godly. And lately I've been sort of seeing there's a difference for me in, I can be happy or sad, or I can be angry or compassionate, or, those. But I say to myself, what's the divine quality I could open into just now when I'm really struggling, say, with pain or with reactivity? And when I'm angry, it might be patience, but patience that is patient with anger and that is patient with not anger, that something that contains both. And a lot of it for me is to do with acceptance and kindness towards whatever is arising, whether it's seemingly good or bad, just kindness to just whatever's arising inside. And that, to me, helps me to open into Baba's qualities of embracing his invisible embrace of both, of duality, that was all.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I think it'll be great when love is what is really natural to us. I mean, we're trying to get through the sanskars. Eventually, love will be our natural behavior.
Yeah, and just what you said about unnatural having to come up. The unnatural, witnessing a lot of the unnatural, but in a way it's natural to have to witness the unnatural because that's part of the process of it's a natural phenomenon, that Baba's law of must. It's all just has to happen because it's a natural evolving or involving. So, Yeah,
we got, Mani used to say, don't forget it all has a happy ending. Okay, now, so anyone have do we have a reading that would kind of speak to, there was a reading that I thought of. Anybody have a reading that's kind of about what we've been talking about?
Jeff.
Yeah.
It's Maharchand Nori.
Yeah.
Baba has explained what is natural, what is unnatural, what is supernatural. Principles he laid down in Manzile Mim in February 1923. Whatever you do according to the nature is natural. What you do little opposite is unnatural. What is supernatural is totally contrary to the natural and unnatural. That is referred to in Lord Meher, first edition, page 477.
Maharchand, say that one again a little more slowly.
Yeah. Natural, unnatural, supernatural principles. Explain. Late in the night, while talking with Ghani about the astroric matters, Master explained the difference between natural, unnatural, and supernatural principle. By acting according to the principles of nature and not going against, results arrived at is natural. But By not following the principles of nature, going against it is naturally result into unnatural. For following the nature way, it results proves unnatural, then it is called supernatural. For example, it is the nature to eat food by mouth and pass excrement from the rectum. But it is supernatural to eat mouth and not pass any food. Instead of feeding oneself by mouth, one feeds through a rectum, then it is unnatural. That was Baba explained. And then Baba also said so. One thing is very important. I felt it in the Lord Mayor is, be natural. Don't change your nature of gaiety, but do not show displeasure or criticize others who are different in nature. You can keep only one beloved in your heart, although you can and may keep many in your mind. So, pointing to himself, keep this one beloved in your heart and find me in every other heart. You cannot hate this one or that one. If you try to see me in every heart, automatically unity and harmony will be established. That is Lord Meher, first edition,
Yeah,
2216. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
DJ. Yeah. So, I think that's a pretty good last reading, unless Mayor Prasad has found something.
Yeah, I have one from Life at its Best, if you want me to read that.
Yeah. And then we'll have a few moments of silence after.
In the divine scales, vice and virtue are necessary experiences man goes through before attaining the supreme balance of self-realization, which is beyond all opposites, good and bad. Good is like a clean mirror that reflects the image of God. When true knowledge is gained, you realize that the reflection is the image of your own self, the God that is in all and in everything. Bad is like the dusty particles that accumulate and hide the image of God, until the mirror presents only a distorted or blank surface. It cannot affect the object being reflected. It merely distorts your vision. Love is the cleanser that wipes the mirror bright and enables you to behold with increasing clarity the indivisible entity that permeates all life. The negative experiences of the bad, with its consequent suffering, ultimately disgusts man and leads him to the positive force of good, thus awakening divine love.
Perfect. Okay. Jai Baba. Well, thank you for all sharing all the different camera angles on those 3 paragraphs from Baba. Wow. So, like I say, Nick Principe on Tuesday. And I'm, like I say, I'm always open to people. People have sent in some possible topics that might be worth exploring. So you're always welcome to do that. Yeah, well, we got Ganesh. He came in on the scene here.
Yeah, Baba. Yes.
Yeah, well, let's see. We don't have Nasreen, but we have, let's see. Who
So,
can we get?
Jeff,
Yeah.
Tuesday night.
Oh, good. She's there. Good. Well, first Ganesh and then Nasreen. Yeah.
So, Jeff, for Tuesday night, would it be like Pratap Uncle's session that would be continued, or you want
Yeah.
to take a different?
Yeah. I'm gonna get Prakash from, you know, where he left off, and we're gonna pick him up again. But I'm getting Nick Principe because he's on his way to Italy, so I'm gonna catch him before he goes.
Okay.
But I'll be in touch.
So you want me to inform Pratap Uncle, like for Tuesday night?
Not this Tuesday.
Not this Tuesday. Okay.
It'll be, I think, the following Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. So we're going to get Nasreen is the bouncer. She clears the tavern.
Okay. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Avatar
Meher
Baba Ki Jai.
Avatar
Meher Baba Ki Jai. Baba Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Baba, thank you all.
Avatar Meher Baba
Ki Jai. Jai Jai.
Avatar
See you
Meher
guys.
Baba Ki
Jai.
Wow.
Good night, everyone from Canada.
Yeah. Wonderful to see all of you. And yeah.
Jai Baba, everyone.
I'm back on Sundays, Jeff. You stuck with me back on Sundays.
Good. That was beautiful.
Over. September's over.
Yeah.
It's the girls' month, so I can't take much time off in September.
Yeah.
The girl is now 41, Jeff, just in case you feel like.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to tell you, we sang a song on her birthday.
Oh.
The song With Light from His Pure Love, I Wind My Way. Huh?
Franietta's song.
Yeah, that song was written for her, wasn't it?
Yes, it's called Franietta's song.
Yeah, well, we sang that.
By Sam, yes.
We sang that on her birthday.
Oh, how lovely. Thank you. She
Yeah.
must be thrilled. She loves it.
Yeah. Okay, much love, everybody.
Jai
Jay
Baba.
Seema, thank
Jai
you for
Baba.
staying up so late.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Jai Baba, Jai Baba,
Thank you,
Jai
Jeff.
Baba.
Jai